Well, hey friends. Yep, Hound's hood is up again. This time I'm gonna replace the thermostat housing, which is here, and the thermostat itself and the seal. And the reason is because it might be hard to see, but just a week ago I wiped a bunch of crumb, oozy goo off of this interface between the block and the housing, and there's more over here. Down here you can see a little bit of it left, and it started just over a week to get a little bit more, so I'm gonna go ahead and just replace it all. Pretty easy to do. It's a 8-year-old Jeep with 75,000 miles, so it's about that time. Now there are some really good videos already on YouTube that show you how to take this off and put it back on, and so why am I even bothering? And I couldn't really find a good video that shows actually taking the thermostat itself out and putting it back in. So real high level though, just gonna take the air intake off, take the throttle body off, then be able to take the housing off after removing the radiator hose. Some fluid's gonna come out, so I'm gonna put a bucket underneath to catch the fluid, and installation's supposed to be just the reverse of taking it all apart. Hopefully it proves out to be that easy. Off, and my goal is to get this clamp off, slide it out of the way as quickly as I can, get the hose off and bend it up and out of the way to stop any flow coming out of the radiator and dump into the ground. And some fluid's gonna come out of here, out of the housing probably, and dump to the ground where I've got some buckets, and hopefully it ends up in the bucket and not on the ground. So we'll see how this goes. So far so good. Clearly using pliers the way God intended to hold the hose back, and also realize I should put something in the intake just in case we don't want to get any fluid or anything else inside there. But there's a bunch of fluid in there that's ready to come out as soon as I start undoing these two 10mm fasteners, but we'll do that next. So the housing came off just fine, piece of cake, and you can see there's a little bit of, we'll call it goopage underneath where it seals, and looking at the thermostat that's still in the block, you can see again the goopage. So I don't see any big tears or anything in the seal, but clearly some fluid is getting past it, so glad I've got all the parts just to replace everything. So I've taken the thermostat out, and this is what it looks like on the underside. Again, no really visible tear, but I don't know, maybe it's just old, getting a little crusty or something, I don't know. But anyway, gonna go ahead and just replace it, and gonna clean this up first and make sure it's a nice clean surface. So this is what the flange looks like, all cleaned off. Now one thing that I didn't do before I pulled the old thermostat off was really pay attention to the orientation. And I'm not sure, but I think it's best to try to put the new thermostat into the same orientation. But the nice thing is it's offset a little bit, so it's pretty easy to know where to point things once you have a look at the old one. Thankfully I'm taking these videos, so I was able to go back and take a look and figure out where it's supposed to go. So I have the new parts, and I'll put the parts I'm using in the description below, but just the thermostat and the new housing, and the vent, the pressure relief valve is right there, and it's really simple. I don't know if I can do it with just one hand, but you just get it lined up how you want it and press it in, and then you can just bolt it down as a single assembly. So it really is pretty easy. I was worried it would be harder, but it looks like it's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to go ahead and finish pushing it down and then reattach it and torque these two bolts to just over 100 inch-pounds, so not much torque required for these bolts. One last thing to remember is when you're cleaning this off, there's no filter in this system, so you want to be really careful not to put any particles into the fluid, because that's just going to keep circulating around, could get jammed up in your plumbing or in the radiator, so be mindful of that as you clean it up. Alright, well I've got everything put back together, engine's running. I'm waiting for the engine to come up to temperature and open the thermostat, I hope. I've got an aftermarket radio, so even though it's a 2011, I'm able to access the data from the OBD, and I can see the coolant temperature. I want to make sure that it still stays, you know, at the operational range and not overheating. I've got the heater turned on so that we're flowing fluid throughout the entire system, and I've got the radiator cap off, so there's clearly going to be some air in the system because I had the hose off. So I've squeezed the hose and gotten some air bubbles out that way. But once the thermostat opens and get the water moving, I'm sure some more bubbles will come through, and I'll let that run for a good while, just to make sure we get all the bubbles out and it stays at a good temperature, and then we'll call it done. So pretty easy task, just like YouTube made it sound. But anyway, if anybody finds this video helpful, feel free to like or subscribe or comment or whatever you'd like. But anyway, that's my experience, and I'll call it quits unless something doesn't work out, and then I'll add another segment to this video. But hopefully it is all good from here.